Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Today we're taking a look at something pretty impressive. It's the St. Croix Crossing Bridge.
Yeah, this one is really cool.
This bridge isn't just your average, concrete slab over a river. This is a project where they really tried to think about how the bridge would look.
Yeah, how to make something that's functional and beautiful at the same time.
Right, because it's in a really scenic area too.
A national scenic riverway.
So they had to be extra careful.
Definitely.
So we've got some cool stuff to dig into today. We've got MNDOT videos showing us how they actually built this thing.
Oh yeah, those are great.
A Wikipedia article to give us kind of the background and context.
Always helpful.
And some insights from the company that designed the bridge HDR.
They did some amazing work on this project.
So let's start by talking about why they even needed a new bridge in the first place.
Right, well there was already a bridge there, the old Stillwater lift bridge.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of that one. It looks kind of...
It was definitely getting up there in age.
I mean, it was causing all sorts of traffic problems. You know, big backups all the time.
Oh, wow.
The Wikipedia article mentions it just wasn't built to handle the amount of traffic they have today.
So it was a bottleneck for the whole area.
Exactly.
So they decided they needed a new bridge.
Yep, no bridge it is.
But they didn't just slap up any old bridge here. They came up with something pretty unique. It's called an extradosed design.
Yeah, you ever heard of that?
I've heard the term, but I don't really know what it means.
It's pretty cool. It's kind of like a hybrid bridge.
Okay.
It takes the best parts of cable-stayed bridges and box girder bridges.
It's like a combination.
Exactly. And it creates this really strong and elegant structure.
I've seen pictures. It does look really cool.
Yeah. And at the time, it was only the second bridge of its kind in the entire U.S.
Wow. Only the second.
Pretty impressive, right?
Yeah. So what's so special about this extradosed design? What does it do that other bridge designs don't? Well, one of the big things is that it allows for longer spans between the piers.
The piers are those big towers that hold the bridge up, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So with longer spans, they didn't need as many piers in the river.
Oh, I see.
And that was a big deal because they wanted to minimize the impact on the environment.
Makes sense. I bet the environmental groups were happy about that.
They were really involved in the whole design process.
But fewer piers also means that each pier has to support more weight, right?
Right. They had to come up with some pretty clever engineering solutions for that.
So what do they do?
Well, if you look at the piers, they have this really unique shape.
Kind of like reeds or something, right?
Exactly. They're designed to mimic the natural vegetation along the riverbank.
Oh, that's cool.
But it's not just about looks.
There's a practical reason, too.
Oh, definitely. You see concrete expands and contracts with temperature changes.
Oh, right.
And in this area, they get some pretty extreme swings between summer and winter.
Oh, yeah. Those Minnesota winters are no joke.
So they designed the piers to flex with those temperature changes.
So they move.
They can move up to 6.5 inches in each direction.
Wow, I never would have guessed that.
It's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, so they took something that could have been a problem, the expanding and contracting concrete, and turned it into a design feature.
Exactly, and a beautiful one at that.
And that's just the part we can see above the water.
Oh yeah, we haven't even gotten to the underwater foundations yet.
I was just about to ask about that. Those looked really impressive in the MNDOT video.
Oh, they were a huge undertaking.
So let's talk about that. What were some of the challenges they faced building those foundations?
Well, first of all, remember, we're talking about a national scenic riverway here.
Right.
So they had to be incredibly careful not to damage the riverbed or the surrounding environment.
So how did they do it? How do you build a bridge foundation underwater without messing everything up?
Well, it all starts with getting down there.
Right.
And we're not talking about snorkeling depths here.
How deep are we talking?
They had to go down 140 feet.
140 feet.
That's like deeper than a 10-story building.
Wow.
And at that depth, they had to create a stable platform to work from.
Because you can't just pour concrete into the water, right?
No, definitely not. They use something called cofferdams.
Cofferdams, what are those?
They're these temporary enclosures that they build around the foundation site.
Oh, okay.
And then they pump all the water out.
So it's like a giant underwater construction zone.
Exactly. And once they have this dry space, they can start building the foundation.
So they build the foundation inside this cofferdam.
Right. And then once it's all done, they carefully remove the cofferdam.
And hopefully don't disturb the riverbed too much.
That's the goal.
That's incredible. I mean, the whole process just sounds so complex.
No, it was a massive engineering feat.
So they had these cofferdams in place 140 feet underwater.
Yeah.
And they had to excavate a bunch of material to make sure the foundation was stable.
They actually had to remove something like 2,500 dump truck loads of material.
Wow, that's mind-boggling.
It is. And then they had to pour these massive concrete footings.
On top of these deep underwater foundations.
Right.
So how do they even do that? How do you get concrete down that far underwater?
Well, they couldn't just pour it directly into the river.
Right, because it would just disperse everywhere.
Exactly. So they used a technique called trimmy concreting.
Trimmy concreting. I've never heard of that.
It's pretty cool. Basically, they use this long flexible pipe,
Okay.
and it goes all the way from the surface down to the bottom of the river.
Inside the cofferdam.
Exactly. And they pump the concrete down this pipe.
Oh, I see.
And because of the way the concrete is mixed, it flows out and fills the formwork from the bottom up.
So it pushes the water out of the way as it goes.
Precisely.
That sounds so precise. Is there any room for error there?
Not much. They have to carefully monitor the whole process
Why?
to make sure there aren't any air pockets or voids in the concrete.
Because that would weaken the foundation.
Exactly. And once the concrete is poured, it has to cure properly underwater.
So it's a pretty delicate operation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a lot more complicated than just pouring concrete on land.
So they went through all this trouble to build these incredibly strong foundations.
Uh-huh.
And I read somewhere that they're designed to last even longer than the bridge itself.
That's right. They engineered those foundations to exceed the expected 100-year lifespan of the bridge.
That's thinking ahead.
Definitely, they wanted to create something that would stand the test of time.
Okay, so we've got these amazing foundations anchoring the bridge deep underwater.
Yeah.
But how does that connect to the part we drive on the bridge deck? What's bridging that gap?
Well, that's where the cross beams come in.
Cross beams, I think I saw those in the videos. Those are the huge concrete structures spanning between the piers, right?
Exactly. Those are the cross beams, and they play a crucial role in supporting the bridge deck.
So they're like the backbone of the whole structure.
Exactly.
And they're massive. I mean, those things are huge.
They have to be to handle all the weight and stress.
Think about all the cars and trucks that cross that bridge every day.
Thousands of them. And each cross beam is made with hundreds of thousands of pounds of rebar
Wow.
and over 100 truckloads of concrete.
That's mind-boggling. I can't even picture that much concrete, let alone that much steel.
It's a lot.
So it's not just about the daily traffic either. They also had to consider future maintenance, right?
Oh, absolutely. They incorporated internal access points within the cross beams.
What does that mean?
It means that inspectors can actually get inside the cross beams
Oh, wow.
to check for any signs of damage or wear and tear.
So they don't have to, like, tear the whole bridge apart to inspect it?
Exactly. They were really thinking long-term with this design.
That's smart planning. I'm impressed.
Me too. It's a testament to their commitment to building a sustainable and durable structure.
It's easy to get caught up in the impressive engineering feats. But let's not forget the human element here. This was a massive collaborative effort, wasn't it?
Absolutely. A ton of people were involved in this project. Engineers, architects, construction workers, government agencies.
And the community itself.
Oh yeah, they had to get everyone on board.
And the HDR article mentioned that the project had a very aggressive timeline.
They did. They had to come up with some pretty creative solutions to stay on schedule.
So it was a real team effort.
Everyone had to work together to make it happen.
And speaking of challenges, those underwater foundations must have presented some unique obstacles.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like what?
Well, one of the biggest challenges was pouring those massive concrete footings on top of the foundations.
Right, because you can't just pour concrete directly into the river.
Exactly. So
Uh-huh.
once they had the cofferdam in place and the water pumped out.
They had this dry space at the bottom of the river.
Right.
But then they had to build a formwork.
Basically a giant mold for the concrete footing.
Oh,
Picture a huge hollow box made of wood and steel,
I'm picturing it.
precisely shaped to the exact dimensions of the footing.
So like a giant concrete Lego brick?
Pretty much, and then they had to figure out how to get all that concrete down to the bottom of the river.
That's what I was wondering. How do you do that?
It's pretty ingenious. They use that tremmy concreting technique we talked about earlier.
Oh, right, with the long pipe?
Exactly. They pump the concrete down the pipe, and it flows out and fills the formwork from the bottom up.
It's like underwater concrete magic.
Kind of, but it's all very carefully controlled and monitored.
So there's no room for error?
Nope. They have to make sure the concrete flows properly and that there aren't any air pockets or anything like that.
So they poured the footing, let it cure, and then remove the formwork and the cofferdam.
Right, and then they could move on to the next section of the bridge.
It's amazing to think about all the steps involved in building something like this.
It really is a testament to human ingenuity and determination.
So we've talked a lot about the technical aspects of the bridge, but I'm curious about the impact on the community. Was there any pushback on the project?
There was some debate early on, especially regarding the environmental impact.
That makes sense. I mean, it's a national scenic riverway, so people were probably concerned about the bridge ruining the view.
Exactly. But ultimately, the various stakeholders, including environmental groups, worked together to come up with a design that minimized the bridge's footprint.
So they found a compromise.
They did, and the new bridge actually addressed a critical need in the community.
Which was?
Well, the old lift bridge was causing major traffic congestion.
Right. The Wikipedia article talked about that.
Yeah, it was a real bottleneck for the whole region.
So has the new bridge helped alleviate that?
Absolutely. Traffic flow has improved drastically since the St. Croix Crossing opened.
So people are getting where they need to go faster.
Exactly, and it's not just about convenience either.
Oh.
Smoother traffic flow means businesses can transport goods more efficiently.
Oh, that makes sense.
It boosts commerce and economic activity.
And it probably reduces the risk of accidents, too.
Absolutely, safety is a big factor as well.
Plus, the new bridge created a new route for emergency vehicles, right?
That's right. So now ambulances and fire trucks can get where they need to go faster in case of an emergency.
So it's not just about aesthetics or engineering. It's about improving the quality of life for the entire community.
Precisely.
And you know what else is interesting? The St. Croix Crossing has become a destination in itself.
You're right. People come from all over just to admire the bridge and the surrounding...
Like it's a work of art.
Exactly.
And they even incorporated pedestrian and bike paths into the design.
Yeah,
so people can actually walk or bike across the bridge and enjoy the views.
It's a great way to experience the bridge and the river valley.
It's like they've turned infrastructure into something beautiful and inspiring.
Exactly. They've elevated the bridge from a purely functional structure to something that enhances the community.
I love that. And it all goes back to that extradosed design, doesn't it?
It does. That innovative design allowed them to create a bridge that is both functional and beautiful.
And speaking of innovation, you mentioned earlier that this type of bridge was pretty groundbreaking at the time.
It was only the second extradosed bridge in the U.S.
So do you think we'll see more bridges like this in the future?
I think it's definitely a possibility. The St. Croix Crossing has proven that extradosed bridges can be a viable solution.
Especially when you need to combine structural strength with aesthetic sensitivity.
Exactly. It's all about finding the right balance.
It's exciting to think about the possibilities. If we can build a bridge this stunning, what else can we create?
Sky's the limit.
But before we get carried away, let's bring things back to our listener. Why should they care about the design of a bridge hundreds of miles away?
That's a great question. I think the St. Croix Crossing offers several valuable lessons.
Like what?
Well, for starters, it shows that we don't have to settle for outdated solutions. We can demand innovative designs that enhance our surroundings rather than detract from them.
It's like they're saying we can build something that works and looks amazing while respecting the environment.
Exactly. And it also highlights the importance of collaboration.
The St. Croix Crossing wouldn't exist without the combined efforts of so many people.
Right. It's a testament to the power of collective vision.
And the idea that we can achieve incredible things when we work together.
Absolutely.
It really makes you appreciate the thought and effort that goes into these massive infrastructure projects.
It does. We often take bridges for granted, but they play such a vital role in our lives.
Connecting us both physically and metaphorically.
That's a great way to put it. And the St. Croix Crossing serves as a powerful reminder that infrastructure can be so much more than just concrete and steel.
Right. It can be a source of beauty.
A symbol of community pride.
And a catalyst for positive change.
Exactly.
I love that it's like they've elevated the bridge from a purely functional structure to something that's almost poetic.
It is poetic in a way.
It makes you wonder what other possibilities are out there. If we can build a bridge this stunning, what else can we create?
That's the beauty of human ingenuity. We're constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
And the St. Croix Crossing is a shining example of what can happen when we combine engineering expertise with artistic vision.
And a deep respect for the environment. Yeah, they're like the backbone of the whole structure.
And they're massive. I mean, those things are huge.
They have to be. They got to handle all that weight and stress, you know?
Yeah, all those cars and trucks every single day.
Thousands and thousands. Each of those cross beams has like hundreds of thousands of pounds of rebar in it.
Really?
Yeah. Crazy, right?
I can't even picture that much steel.
And on top of that, over 100 truckloads of concrete for each crossbeam.
100 truckloads of concrete per beam.
Per beam. It's wild.
So they've really built these things to last.
Oh, yeah. And it's not just about the daily traffic either. They were thinking way ahead.
Oh, really? How so?
They actually built in these internal access points.
Internal access points. What are those?
So basically, there are these little openings inside the crossbeams.
Okay.
So inspectors can actually get inside.
Get inside the beams.
Yeah, to check for any damage or wear and tear.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah, it's way easier than having to tear the whole bridge apart if they need to inspect something.
Makes sense. So they're not just building for today. They're thinking decades ahead.
Absolutely. They wanted to create a structure that would be sustainable and durable, you know?
I like that it's like they're taking responsibility for the long-term health of the bridge.
Exactly. It's a sign of good engineering and planning.
It's easy to get caught up in all the technical stuff, but, it's important to remember the human side of things, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, this is a massive collaborative effort, right?
Huge. I mean, you've got the engineers, the architects, all the construction workers.
Government agencies on both sides of the river.
Not to mention the community itself.
Yeah, everyone had to be on board with this.
Oh, yeah. And the HDR article mentioned they had a really tight timeline, too.
Oh, really?
So they had to get creative to keep things on track.
So it was a real team effort.
Definitely a lot of problem solving and collaboration.
Speaking of challenges, those underwater foundations must have been a real headache.
Oh, yeah. Those were tricky.
What were some of the biggest obstacles they faced?
Well, pouring those massive concrete footings on top of the foundations was a big one.
Right, because you can't just dump concrete in the river.
Nope, it wouldn't work. So once they got that cofferdam in place...
And pumped all the water out?
Yeah, they had a dry space to work in, but then they had to build this formwork.
A formwork? What's that?
It's basically a giant mold for the concrete footing.
Oh, okay.
Like a huge hollow box made of wood and steel.
Got it.
And it has to be precisely shaped to the exact dimensions of the footing.
So it's like a giant concrete Lego.
Pretty much, yeah.
So they built this formwork, and then they had to figure out how to get all that concrete down there.
Hundreds of feet underwater.
Exactly. So how do they do it?
Well, remember that Tremie concreting technique we talked about?
Oh, yeah, with the pipe.
Yeah, they pumped the concrete down that pipe, and it filled up the formwork from the bottom up.
So it pushed the water out of the way as it went.
Exactly. It's pretty ingenious.
It is. It sounds like underwater concrete magic.
Yeah, but it's all very carefully controlled. You know, they have to make sure the concrete flows properly and that there aren't any air pockets or anything like that.
Because that would weaken the footing.
Exactly. So they had to monitor the whole process very closely.
Once the concrete was poured, they let it cure underwater. And then remove the formwork and the cofferdam.
And voila, you've got yourself a bridge footing.
It's incredible when you think about all the steps involved in building something like this.
It really is a testament to human ingenuity and perseverance.
So we've talked a lot about the technical stuff, but what about the community? How did they feel about this whole project?
Well, there is definitely some debate in the early stages.
Especially about the environmental impact, I imagine.
Yeah, some folks were worried about the bridge ruining the natural beauty of the river valley.
Which is understandable. I mean, it's a national scenic riverway.
Right. But in the end, they were able to come up with a design that everyone could live with.
So they've had a good compromise.
They did. And it's important to remember that the new bridge was also addressing a real need in the community.
Yeah, the old lift bridge was causing some serious traffic problems.
Big time. It was a major bottleneck for the whole region.
Has the new bridge helped with that?
Oh, yeah. Traffic flow has improved significantly since they opened the St. Croix Crossing.
So less congestion, less time spent stuck in traffic.
Exactly. And that has all sorts of positive ripple effects.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, it makes it easier for businesses to transport goods.
Oh, right. Less time on the road means more time doing business.
Exactly. It's good for the economy, and it also improves safety.
Because less congestion means fewer accidents.
Right. And they also created a new route for emergency vehicles.
So that's a good point.
So now ambulances and fire trucks can get where they need to go faster.
So it's not just about aesthetics or engineering. It's about improving people's lives.
Absolutely.
And, it's funny, you mentioned earlier that the St. Croix Crossing has become a tourist attraction.
It has. It's kind of become a landmark in its own right.
People come from all over to see it.
Yeah, it's really become a symbol of the community.
They even built in pedestrian and bike paths so people can enjoy the bridge and the views.
That's a great way to experience it.
It's like they took this piece of infrastructure and turned it into something beautiful and inspiring.
Yeah, they really did. They took what could have been just a functional bridge and made it something special.
And it all comes back to that extradosed design, doesn't it?
It does. That innovative design allowed them to achieve both functionality and aesthetics.
So do you think we'll see more bridges like this in the future?
I think it's definitely a possibility. You know, that St. Croix Crossing has shown that it can be done.
That you can build a bridge that's both strong and beautiful.
Exactly. And I think that's a trend we'll see more of in the future.
It's exciting to think about the possibilities.
It is. It's like, what else can we do if we can build a bridge like this?
But let's bring things back down to earth for a second.
Okay.
Why should our listeners care about a bridge that's hundreds of miles away?
That's a fair question. I think the St. Croix Crossing has some important lessons for all of us.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, it shows that we don't have to settle for the same old boring solutions.
We can demand better.
We can demand designs that are both functional and beautiful and that respect the environment.
It's like they're saying we can have it all.
Exactly. And it also highlights the importance of collaboration.
All those people working together to make this happen.
Yeah, engineers, architects, construction workers, government agencies, community members. It's a testament to what we can achieve when we work together.
So it's not just about a bridge. It's about the power of human ingenuity and cooperation.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it really is inspiring to see what people can accomplish when they set their minds to it.
It is, you know, sometimes we forget that we're capable of these amazing feats of engineering and design.
Right, we take it for granted.
Yeah, like bridges, we cross them every day without really thinking about what went into building them.
But the St. Croix Crossing really makes you stop and think.
It does, it makes you appreciate the artistry and the skill that goes into creating something like this.
It's like a reminder that infrastructure doesn't have to be ugly or intrusive.
Right. It can actually enhance the environment and the community.
Like you said earlier, it's about finding that balance between functionality and aesthetics.
Exactly. And the St. Croix Crossing is a great example of that.
It really is. So as we wrap up our deep dive into this incredible bridge, what's the one key takeaway you hope our listeners will remember?
That's a good question. I think the biggest thing is that we should all take a moment to appreciate the things we often overlook.
Like bridges.
Yeah, bridges, buildings, roads, all these things that make our lives easier and connect us to each other.
We just kind of take them for granted.
We do, but if we stop and really look at them, we might be surprised by what we discover.
The beauty, the ingenuity, the hard work that went into creating them.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe it'll even inspire us to create something amazing ourselves.
Well said. I love this. So to our listeners out there, the next time you cross a bridge, any bridge, take a moment to really see it.
Think about the people who designed it, the people who built it, the impact it has on the community.
And maybe even the stories it could tell.
I like that.
And of course, if you want to learn more about the St. Croix Crossing, we've got links to all our source materials in the show notes.
Be sure to check them out.
And a huge thank you to you for sharing your expertise with us today.
It was my pleasure. I always enjoy these deep dives.
It's been a fascinating journey.
Yeah, it has.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.